Now we've looked at the internal structure of arguments and seen the relationship between premises and conclusions. Premises give support to the conclusion, and that relationship doesn't work in reverse. It always flows towards the conclusion. Now that you've seen that internal structure, I want to give you a shortcut that can be handy sometimes for identifying these parts. Indicator words are a phrase, a word or a phrase that comes before a statement that identifies its role within the argument. So an example might be as follows. Because cats get so much exercise from hunting when they live in the wild, it follows that house cats need to play a lot in order to be happy and satisfied. In that sentence, the because at the beginning indicated a premise, and it follows that part indicated that I'm getting to my conclusion. So it was a very simple argument with just one premise and one conclusion, each marked by an indicator word. Now, indicator words are extremely helpful for identifying parts when they are present. The big issue with them that I want you to remember right away, the big warning, is that they're not always present. People in common speech and also on the LSAT in these arguments omit these words all the time. So let's look at an argument quickly. Okay, here's the same argument we saw last lesson. I got rid of one premise, but we have two premises and the conclusion. Here, this first premise we notice is not marked, but this says because, and that's a great premise indicator, right? So we can identify that as a premise very readily. And then here, it is clear that that's a good conclusion indicator. So we know we have a good conclusion here going by indicator words. I want people to note that the conclusion doesn't even have to be a different sentence from the premise. In fact, it commonly isn't. Look how I've made these into one sentence. But here is the boundary between the premise and the conclusion. And the indicator words help us see that very clearly. But this one here doesn't have an indicator word. So we're sort of left thinking about that just in terms of support in order to identify it as a premise. We can still identify it as a premise, but we have to think about the fact that, okay, that's because it's supporting this conclusion. So indicator words don't always help you, but when they're there, they can help you very quickly identify argument parts. Make sure you read the text lesson for a long but not exhaustive list of indicator words so you can start thinking about them and use them as part of your strategy for identifying the parts of arguments.